Hello, everyone, and welcome to the weekly show. This is the first episode of season 3, and it's a show I do every week for Patreons, where I go over Q&A, questions, topics, and then in the second half of the video, I break down army lists, Warhammer army lists, or Age of Sigmar army lists, or whatever army lists that have been submitted by patrons, and I get to give you my thoughts. So welcome. Thanks for coming to hang out. Also celebrating 30,000 subscribers on YouTube. So I wanted to make this video public. The first episode of the new season. I'm back from holidays and summer, and everything is basically going back on track as normal. And I'll be doing this every single week, basically, except for the winter Christmas holidays or whatnot. And then until I take another break next summer around August when it's the time for the World Team Championship of Warhammer. And hopefully going to that again as well. But hello, I'm Skari, your grateful host. Thanks for coming to hang out with me today on a Friday morning. So you're either at work or not at work. Yeah, that's kind of how that works. As you can see here, I've got all the questions lined up, ready to rock and roll. There's a few ways that folks can participate. You can either get involved in the chat when it's live. You can put a question up. I have a special spot on the Discord where patrons can kind of post their questions and topics for conversation. I'll break those down over time, and then there's also a topic, a little section to put army lists where we go through what we call the list crunch, where it's a delicious, crunchy way to begin your weekend. Basically, is kind of how that goes. And hello to everybody coming to hang out. So thank you so much. Hola, Daniel. Thanks for coming to say hello. Other than that, it's been a good holiday. Took, 3 weeks off or something like that? For almost 4 weeks off of doing the show. And went camping and just kind of relaxed and did sports and did stuff with my kid and then family. And now I'm back to it. Back to the grind, which I really have a lot of fun with. Sadly, this week's battle report was scuffed. Spent about 4 hours prepping a battle report against John the Cron, and it's scuffed. So no battle report, which is a pain in my butt because then now I have to find another person to play, or because John's schedule's really busy, and I have to film another game and then edit it. It's just anyway. So Stevox, hello, how's it going? Thanks for coming to hang out as well. Yes, you do get about 3 to 4 to 5 minutes of me rambling about things that have happened to me and things that are going good. What am I working on? Hobby corner wise, I'm currently working on a Blood Bowl team. It's the Denizen Underworld Denizens, or it's like the Underworld Alliance. It's a combination Blood Bowl team of orcs, goblins, and Skaven and snotlings. So it's like a combo team. You kind of mix them all together. You can even have ogres in there as well. And it seems really fun, and I haven't played Blood Bowl ever, and I joined a Blood Bowl league at the Tabletop Forge and my local game store. And anyway, I'm gonna have my first real match on Thursday next week. So let's just say I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm gonna learn on the fly. I might watch a couple of YouTube videos so I don't make a total fool of myself. Hey, good to hear you feeling good after the holiday. Any plans for comeback in the competitive swing of things for 40K? Hey, Philip, what's going on? Yes, so I'll go through my schedule actually. Why don't I just share my schedule with all of you? I should just make my calendar public since, that's just how that works. Next weekend, I have a practice team tournament, which I'm going to. Then I'm going to the Champions Cup in the USA. I think that's in Dallas. That's on the 21st, or the weekend of the 21st. So I'm at the Champions Cup with the Red Dragon team, which is going to be really fun. So I'll be there if anybody's going to be there. Then I'm going to go to the Stud or Snotling. That's on the 28th. Then in October, first weekend is free. Second weekend is free. No. Then on October 12th, I'm I'm pretty sure I'm going to be at the Tampa Bay Open, the Tampa Open, and then I'm going down, and then I'm going to hang out with the Art of War crew for a couple of days that week. Maybe do some like content and stuff, which I think will be really fun. Then I'm going up to Timmins to do some coaching. Then on November 2nd, Mike Mudd Memorial Tournament. So tournament, but more of a charity event. Then the 16th, then November 23rd is the WCW, so that's another big event that we're going to. And then in December, pretty chill. Anyway, so yes, I've got until LVO, I've got some like decent stuff lined up or whatnot as well. So stay tuned for that. Okay. So enough of my ramblings. First part of the show, I go through Patreon questions. I talk about stuff, and I answer questions by patrons. Yeah, and then we go from there. And this is a show I do every single week for all of you folks. Now, the best way to support me is on Patreon. Now, the Discord is now available to everyone, but patrons get access to like cool stuff behind the scenes. We play video games every Thursday. There's a TTS league. We've got a Crusade league that has been run by Meadows. We've got this weekly show and a variety of other really cool things as a thank you for helping me make content. So thank you. Okay, and also I'm going to be doing a 30,000 subscriber thing. I'm not sure what to do yet. Everybody's like giveaway and stuff. I'm like, but what? Like, what do I give away? You know, maybe I'll do a stream, like a 30,000 minute long stream. No, 30,000 second long stream. You know, I don't know. We'll do something fun. But let's dive into the show. Welcome to the weekly show, everyone. Batterskull says, hello, Scary. New season. Yay! I know, I'm excited too. Since the recent resurgence of damage modifiers, from Dark Angel Terminators to Force Titan and Monolith lists, etc., are there any general tips to counter this? What are your general plan when you face an army with that many hard-to-kill threats? Thanks. That's a great question. So ideally, volume of firepower that's like 1 damage tends to work really, really well. Right. As for Dark Angel Terminators, like they have shields. Like we're talking Deathwing Knights. They have shields. They have 4 wounds each. So ideally, you're shooting them with 3 damage weapons, and then you just have to double the amount of damage that you need to do. So you normally, because that would be the most efficient anyway. Like 3 damage weapons, you need 2 to go through to kill 1 Terminator. So you kind of need 2 to go through still, even with the -1 damage. As an example. So like a Dark Lance would kill potentially a whole 1, but you need like 2 Dark Lances to like automatically kill 1 of the Terminators. You know, not super efficient. But like Splinter Cannons aren't exactly the most efficient in that matchup. However, a Court of the Archon, very efficient, because, or Lilith, they're all 1 damage, they're all poison X infantry or lethal hits or reroll hits, reroll wounds, so like things like that from a Dark Eldar perspective. The same thing for Catan. Like Catan, same thing. The Core of the Archon tends to be like my secret sauce. As for Monolith, you should be using Haywire. Just Haywire or things like that. Now, if you're playing Black Templars, for example, which is my other army, I love my Sword Brethren. The +1 damage that they get, right, in close combat is like an addition, kind of like Melta. It's a special rule. So that doesn't get reduced. So like the Sword Brethren +1 damage, you know, gets past the -1 damage. It really hurts the Deathwing Knights. It really hurts things like the Catan, right? Because they can't reduce that damage. Kind of like Melta, right? So Melta is really good at that as well. But as a rule of thumb, and this you can take this to the grave, or share it, it's fine. Kill all the things that they're going to use to score points. So if you're playing the Catan Monolith list, kill the flayed ones, kill the death marks, kill the scarabs, kill the little units of immortals, kill all the little crap, kill the destroyers, single destroyer units they have lying around. That stuff has to die, because then they have to use Catan to like do a containment or sabotage or whatever to score points. Same thing with the Dark Angels. Kill the infiltrators, the scouts, the assault intercessors with jump packs. Like, don't kill Like, don't worry too much about the Terminators. Try and bypass the Terminators and kill all the stuff they're going to use to try and score points to force them to press buttons with Deathwing Knights or a Repulsor, you know? That's usually the solution. It's not a pretty solution, but it's a solution. And it kind of plays into the whole math wins games part of this game. Yeah, but thanks for your question, Batterskull. Thanks for the answer. Looking forward to it. Philip says 30k subs, amazeballs. Yeah, well, it wouldn't be possible without all of you. So thank you so much to everybody who subscribes to the channel and who's been literally watching me for like 10 years. Thank you very much. I know I'm not the biggest channel out there. I'm a very, very niche channel, but I enjoy doing what I do, and I hope you enjoy watching and learning. Hello, Sindri. What's going on? On to the next question. Danny Cod says, hey, Scary, how's it going? It's going very good. I've had a good week so far. Do you think they'll increase our points in the next data slate? I'm assuming you're talking about Dark Eldar. Which units do you think will get a points increase? So Dark Eldar, regardless of what the Art of War tier list says, is doing okay in Pariah. Like, we can play the Pariah missions quite nicely. And you know, but we've always been good at playing the mission. Like, even though the army's been crap a lot of the times, we tend to be able to play the game quite well. It's just really prevalent in Pariah right now. So we do have an average of 58 to 60% win rate in all of Pariah right now, which is quite good. However, we're only like 3.8% of the meta or something. Like, we're a small percentage of the meta, which is, you know, it is what it is. So there's two things. Games Workshop will either have an aneurysm, and they'll be like, they'll overreact, and they'll be like, let's nerf Drukhari, which isn't really reflective of the faction in and of itself, because there's such a small percentage of people playing it. Sure, but the numbers kind of say a story, right? And the other option is that they will not take it, like, they'll make it better somehow, and then it'll really become a problem. So do I think there'll be points increases? Yeah, like, I would assume that they'll increase points on certain things, but I hope that they also decrease points on stuff or change some of the rules or mechanics in some of the other things so that we can have some options. Like, grotesques are like meh, but they're almost good. You've got Hellions are still way too expensive. I could see an Archon, Incubi, Beast Pack, Lilith going up, and Scourge going up again. Like, I could see those go up, especially the Beast Pack. I think Beast Pack, Archons and Incubi, Lilith. Yeah. Everything else, I doubt. Maybe a Chronos. I could see the Chronos actually going up, because now everybody's taking, what, 1 or 2 Chronos at least. More because of Pariah, so you can press buttons in Pariah. And that's my general thoughts, you know? So, like, looking at my list right now, I'm like, where would I find points? I'm like, I don't know. The Void Raven Bomber might actually go up as well. I might be totally responsible for that. That I will take 100% responsibility. Even though the Void Raven Bomber is already overcosted, it is very good. It's overcosted, but it's very good. And hopefully they decrease points on things like the Razorwing Jet Fighter. Although I doubt it, because Games Workshop seems to be moving away from using aircraft in games. They don't seem to enjoy the mechanic of the aircraft, which I'm not surprised. So maybe that goes down. I don't know if Talos go down again. I doubt it. Maybe Talos stay the same. You know, who knows? Maybe Witches go. I don't know if Witches go up. So we'll see. Maybe the Chronos. Yeah, I agree. Don't decrease points, I beg. We don't need to be a horde army. Yeah, that's true. Hey, that's usually how it goes. They make us all hordy. But Danny Cod, thank you for your question. Moving on to the next one. Too much coffee. There's never too much coffee. Okay, just saying. Hello, Scary. Hello. Looking for a new season of the Monday show. Couple of questions. Now the weekly show. Yeah, it used to be on Mondays, and I split it into 2 shows. Now it's 1 show combined called The Weekly Show, and it's just once a week, a show. Couple of questions. Number 1, what is your favorite piece or moment of Drukhari lore. So one of my, do you have a favorite character? So my favorite character is the Decapitator or the Duke. Duke Sliskus is probably one of my favorite characters. He was like a pirate, Corsair pirate, you know, but very Dark Eldar Corsair pirate. And then the Decapitator, which is like a Mandrake character that was like the hero Mandrake that basically I could see him coming back, which would be really, really cool. But my favorite piece of lore is in the Path of the Archon. Not really any spoilers, right? If you haven't read Path of the Archon, it's a three-part series written by Andy Chambers, I believe. And in that book, they describe sort of like a feast, like a Dark Eldar having like a banquet or whatever. Or one of the Archons is having a banquet, and he invites like people to this, or a whole bunch of like folks to this banquet. And the chairs and tables are all made with like bones. Yeah. Of like different like races from all over the galaxy. And like the cutlery or like the like cutlery on the tables are like different utensils from different civilizations from all over the galaxy, just to show off how much raiding this like guy's done, right? Been like, this Archon has been everywhere, and there's like an orc fork and like a guardsman, cooking knife or whatever, and like every single placemat is just different for this giant banquet to just show how extensive this Archon's raids have been. I've always really liked the image of that. Not the image or like the fact that they're human, like their bones or whatever. No. Although that's, it's badass. But it's like more like the fact that that's what they find. Like that's a sign of status, right? Being like, oh, I have thousands of places and none of them are the same because I've raided and just kind of like gotten, from all different civilizations or whatever. And I thought that was crazy to think of it in that way. Anyway, that's like one of my favorite pieces of lore. Number 2, in matchups when the bomber is less useful, how do you get the most out of its points? Are there any good non-damage related tricks we should be utilizing? Well, you can still sort of move block with bombers. That's number 1. Number 2 is if it's less, I find the bomber not to be less useful almost ever. The bomber tends to be useful almost every time because AP4 is useful almost every time, even against like 1 damage stuff, even stuff that like reduces your damage, or against vehicles that are higher toughness so you're not wounding them as easily. Just being able to, like, if you roll 5s, you just get damage through because you're high AP, or being able to just shoot anything you can see because you don't care about footprints or whatever. I think that's just really powerful. At the end of the day, though, if they are quote unquote useless, you want them to wave their arms around and just soak up damage. So you would kind of put them in the most conspicuous places and be like, shoot me! Oh, look, I'm a bomber. So anything that shooting a bomber isn't like trying to seek out and shoot your Kabalite warriors or your Venoms or your Raider, right? That's like scoring you points. So they become a distraction Carnifex in that sense, basically. And that's what I would recommend for the bomber. And then, of course, you can give it a 4-up invul and maybe soak up more of the shots and things. Or, like, rapid ingress it to, like, be like, ooh, I'm going to rapid ingress to threaten a bombing run, even though the bombing run is, like, terrible. Or at least, more often than not, the bombing run does nothing, So it is something that you can do, be like, rapid ingress and be like, oh no, I'm in line of sight of your big, nasty gun. So do you shoot my Void Raven, or do you shoot my Venom that you lined up to shoot at previously? That sort of thing. Hello, Andy. The Dark Kin indeed. But hopefully that helps. Too much coffee. On to the next question. Brimstone asked, hello, Skari. First off, thank you for answering my last question about your mindset while playing. No problem. It was a really cool insight. It's helped me play better. Yeah, you're very welcome. Anyways, what is your longest win streak? My longest win streak was, I don't count really, but I think the longest win streak that I can think of was in Leviathan. The longest win streak recently was Leviathan. I think it was 12 games or 13 games in a row or something like that of tournament games. So that was my longest tournament win streak. Yeah, it was like 12 games, which is like 2 GTs in a row, basically. Almost 3 GTs in a row. Or like 4 RTTs, right? Like if it's 3, something like that, before I lost a game. Right now, I think my streak is 6, and then it broke. I actually haven't done a tournament in a while. But if I go into the battles app, I look at my stats. My current streak in Pariah, the longest streak was 6 before I lost my first game. Yeah, and I have a 100% win rate if I go second. Just so you know. Yeah, wasn't that triple Tantalus list in 9th your biggest win streak? The triple Tantalus list in Insane for Rain? No, well, I don't think it was. It was a lot of fun, but that was just fun. I just did that because it was entertaining. I do not remember. My longest win streak though was probably like 30 games back in like 4th edition with my Black Templars when I switched to Dark Eldar because nobody wanted to play me anymore because I just could not lose a game with my Black Templars. And and my local game group was like, ugh. Because I didn't change my list. Like, that's one thing I do is I play the same list over and 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 over. And it just, like, I get good at a list, but then people playing against it, if I can beat them over and over with that same list, they're like, it gets stale for them too. So I had to switch it up. But thank you for your question, Brimstone. And I'm glad that thought process thing that we talked about in the last video kind of gave you some good insight on, playing with different mentality, basically. On to the next question. Alaric Dark Void says, what advice do you give to Drukhari players facing a mirror match? That's a good question. Would you prioritize taking down the transports first or their threats to your transports? You have to demech a Dark Eldar player. Like, you want to be the fastest army on the table. Demeching stuff is super important. However, the biggest thing with Dark Eldar and Dark Eldar Mirror Match is you have to make sure you kill more things that they kill of yours faster than they kill of yours, because it comes down to a bit like a war of attrition, where the trades that you do are very important. So, like, making sure that your Lilith and Venom kill like 3 units instead of 1 unit at a time. So you need to like double or triple up on your kills. It's a lot easier to talk about it than to do though, and changing sort of like the math. Like, do not. Another biggest thing is, especially in the mirror match, don't leave single models alive. Don't leave like a single witch alive or a single Cabalite alive or a single Scourge alive. Like, you need to make sure you kill the unit. Remove units completely, especially in the mirror match. Don't leave it up to chance. Don't leave like one little model alive, because it will come and bite you in the butt, especially in a Drukhari on Drukhari mirror match. And then try and demech them. Try and get them out of their transports. If you can kill their Venoms faster than they kill yours, if you can kill their Raider faster than they kill yours, you are in a much better spot as well. Of course, if they've got fast units like jet bikes and stuff, those are easy to kill. Kill them too. Like, kill all the little crap. It's not a transport if you can. If they're a smart Dark Eldar player, they're hiding all their transports. So don't go out of your way to kill the transports. But, like, you have to leverage that speed, basically. Bonzi Kitty says, as a new demon player, how would you counter great screening? You're the master of screening. I am the master of screening. I'm pretty darn good at screening. You have to go past the screen somehow. So, like, number one, try and threaten with that 3-inch deep strike a lot of the time. That works really, really well. But essentially, you have to kind of like make sure that if they screen, you can go past the screen and then tie up the stuff that's going to be the second screen, right? Like, that's the key. is don't just play against the screen, play past the screen. So you need to have fast moving stuff that can get behind the screen or kill the stuff that's going to become the next screen. So you can clear the screen and stop the next screen from getting placed. And then you can kind of really start working the game. Dark Eldar competitive. Are Dark Eldar competitive compared to the more durable races, or are the Dark Eldar too squishy and require overcompensating effort? I think we play the mission very well, Judge Dredd, and so we're very competitive, yeah. Yeah, no problem, Bonzi. Thanks for asking the question. On to the next one. Bamboo Brains. Bamboo and Brains. That's a great combination, actually. Changed my question. I did see you change your question. I like that you like scratched it out in the thread and you like scratched and then changed it to something different. It's very cool. Nice little touch there. I also love that like it got answered in the thread by other patrons instead of like waiting for it to be answered by me. Like people were so excited about answering that question that it became an answered question in the thread of questions, which is funny. How do you suggest dealing with Thunderwolf cavalry? Taking 2 Void Bomber lists to a month-long tournament, and Space Wolves are hands down the most represented army there. So month-long tournament is more like a league, I'm assuming, is kind of like how it is. Space Wolves. So Thunderwolf cavalry are an interesting dynamic. Like Wolf Jail is a thing. It's not an easy matchup. Number one. Number two, Void Raven Bombers are one of the best lists of one of the best weapons that we have because they're all 2 damage shots. And like Thunderwolf Cav, what, 4 wounds or something like that? So like every couple saves they fail just kills Thunderwolf. And they're like the right strength, so they wound them decently. So they're forcing them to just take up 4 up saves or just die. So that's really, really good. Secondly, as long as you have a beast pack and like some screening units, you should be okay. The key there is into Thunderwolf Cav is you can kill them. I've played against the 3 units of Thunderwolf Cav, each with a Lord, each with a thing. Like it is not an easy game to play because of how much pressure they put on you. But scouts work really well, like the beast pack helps. Secondly, don't deploy right on the line. Make sure you have like screening units that like need to be sacrificed. If they go first, they can rush you, kill something. That's fine. It's how you respond to being put in that wolf jail. And a lot of the times it comes down to stuff like don't shoot the Thunderwolf cavalry unit that's right next to you because they can surge forward with their lieutenant's ability and tie you in combat. Which means, number one, it's only a D6 surge and it's once per game. So you can stay 7 inches away or 7.1 inches away and be like, I'm going to shoot you, and they cannot surge into the stuff that you have nearby. Okay, so that's number one. It's like super important. Number two is if you do want to get up close and personal, you need to like screen the closest unit and shoot the furthest unit. So like move block the unit that they put right in front of you and then shoot and kill the units behind them. They'll move forward, but you've screened the first unit so like they don't get past you. That's another option. They can't go through walls, so make sure you use buildings to your advantage, like screen between the buildings because they can't go through walls. That sort of thing. Little stuff like that I think should help you with that as well. And then when your Void Ravens come in, you don't necessarily have to kill the Thunderwolf Cav. Kill the stuff that like scores points. Like kill the stuff at the back to force the Thunderwolf Cav to play the mission, which is then not as easy as it seems, especially if they've invested so many points into those units as well. Hey, Harborn from Vortex Games. How's it going? Nice to see you. Huge shout out to Vortex Games, by the way. Thanks to whom I have a screen to do streams with and a whole rig to do streams with at the studio. So thank you so much. But I hope that answers your question, Bamboo. Yeah. Okay, moving on to the next one. Phil asks, how do I establish a practice regimen coming back to the hobby, keeping in mind that A, I don't have much time to play, and B, my confidence is shot from losing so many games in a row? So, that's a great question, Phil. And to be honest, it's the practice is you're going to get more practice from trying to strengthen your resolve, I think. So finding a way, and this goes with it without playing games, finding a way to be okay losing all those games is probably the number one thing. Because you can play games and practice, but if say you lose a game and that is discouraging to you, that is not conducive to practice, right? So you can play a ton of games, but if losing a game is discouraging, then there's no connect there. Because when you practice, you have to practice to lose. That's a key part of practicing. And so part of my practice regime is trying to lose, but like not in that sense where like I don't take the loss personally. I don't get discouraged by a loss because losing a game in practice gives me a lot of information that then I can use for later. The key is when I'm playing a game, I don't try to win practice games. Like that is key. It's like stop trying to win a practice game because winning a practice game is pointless. It's like yes, winning is good, but you have to be okay with not worrying about winning, especially practice games. Like if you're going to a tournament and you want to perform, sure, you're trying to win games at your tournament. But leading up to the tournament, you played 20 games and lost 15 of them. That is fine as long as you were in the practice mentality. So when you're training and when you're practicing, like if you were training or practicing for like tennis, right? And I call this the tennis mentality. It's like when I'm playing tennis and we're just volleying back and forth, you're practicing swings and you're testing things and going, oh, if I hit it this way, and then kind of seeing the physics of the ball and how like it goes over the net or whatever, and you're like bouncing back and forth, and you try different serves, and you go, oh, if I do this with my serve, and then it like goes wild, and you cut the ball real far and stuff like that. I'm not worried about making everything perfect because I'm practicing. What am I doing during a practice tennis match or a practice volley? I'm literally just testing random shit. And it sometimes goes out one way and sometimes flies over and sometimes hits the net and sometimes, but what I'm doing is getting sort of used to the mechanics so that when I do play, I'm like, I kind of understand the ball physics and the racket and how I need to hit it and how hard I need to hit it and how I can respond. The same thing happens in Warhammer. You have to be able to take a practice game and test things without the pressure of winning or losing because it's a test game. You want to go, well, what happens if I reserve my whole army? Test that. What happens if I put everything on the line and rush you? Test that. What happens if I use this unit for something that it's clearly not intended for? Test that. What if I, you know, put all my characters outside of their units? Test that, right? And a lot of the times you're going to lose those games. But the key is the mentality that goes into it. So when you come back to the hobby, the thing I would recommend is just get into the habit of finding the schedule where you can practice games. So like get into a habitual practice schedule. That would be the number one thing is like every week I can play 2 games and just get used to playing those 2 games without worrying about winning or losing those games. Secondly, build like a list and just play that list over and over again and tweak it over time. But get into sort of like a habit of just playing games. Get back into playing and stop worrying about winning or losing. And that would be my biggest recommendation, Phil, is like just start playing games consistently, get back into playing games, and then eventually you can focus on trying to win those games, if that makes sense. Bonzi says, I lose a lot. I'm a painter and a gamer second, but I try and make small adjustments and embrace the narrative. Yeah, embracing the narrative is a good way of doing it as well. Phil says, hello, just showed up, and I have a feeling you're talking about my question. Yes. Hey, Phil. Absolutely. Hi. It's like you were drawn to this. I lost almost every one of my last 20 games. It's hard to know if I'm even learning anything. And you know what? I totally understand that as well. And the key is, keeping... So there's a couple of ways that you can sort of like break this down. stats are great, right? But we definitely live in an age of numbers, right? Where like the internet pundits, myself included, will say this is good, this is bad, right? And we kind of like, you have to measure yourself against these numbers, and if you're not within these parameters because this is what the internet says, then you're shitty or whatever. So there's a couple of things that really impact gameplay, and a lot of the times, like a win rate, like if you're looking at improving a win rate, there's a couple of like key levels. Number one is your thought process in the game, right? Which can be like how focused are you on scoring points. Secondly is like your list building. Are you building a list, or are you kind of missing out on the list building aspect, right? That's another thing. And thirdly is like the group of people that you play with, or your regular sparring partners. So finding a sparring partner that, or like sparring partners, right, that don't just kick your ass, but sort of like tell you why you got your butt kicked, right? Like if you're losing 20 games, has there been was it like you lost the game and therefore you sort of like I've had games where I've lost and I don't care what my opponent says at the end of the game. I'm like, I just kind of tuned out of the game. Like I was emotionally disconnected from the result of this game. So I didn't really learn anything. And the best losses that I've had are ones where I can look at the game rationally after the game and go, oh, I had control over some of the things that I did wrong that game, so I need to change those things. And then my opponent kind of reinforces that, being like, well, that one move you did, or that one move you did, right? And then I will take a step back and go, yes, I made that mistake. I can change that, right? And so it is a lot harder when, and then there's times where I have, say, a list concept, and this was in like 8th edition. I was like, back when we were doing, it was in 9th edition. Anyway, there was like dark techno monsters were the thing. And I had this like super cool concept. It was like all raiders with disintegrated cannons, and all I wanted to do was I wanted to do like the +1 to wound thing on all my raiders. I was like, yeah, disintegrators with +1 damage, +1 to wound, because you could boost them like at a point in time. I was like, that'd be the coolest thing ever. And I literally beat my head up against the wall for like 15 games with this list. And every time I lost, it was like, I was like, ugh. Like, I wanted the concept to work so badly that I just kept on beating my head up against the wall. And I just wanted it to work, and I wanted it to work. And I tried, and I tried, and I tried, and it just didn't work. And to this day, I feel like it could have worked, but it didn't. And the proof is in the pudding, because I played that list a lot, and I just lost a lot of games. So sometimes it can be list concept, where like we are trying to make something work that just doesn't vibe with either our play style or sort of like the dynamics of the game at the time. And so that can be something as well where we have to be like, oh, that one unit that I really love, maybe if I take it out, it gives me more options to like help me win the game. And you kind of have to take that sort of like humility pill, be like, humility pill. Okay, let's try something else, and then sometimes that helps. Sometimes it doesn't help. It is what it is. But the biggest thing is like finding good sparring partners as well that not only kick your butt, but like keep your attitude to the point where like you can have a constructive conversation after, which is one of the reasons why a lot of folks, talk to me as a coach or have me as a coach, is they have somebody to bounce those ideas off of, to be like, look, this was my game and this is how it all went. And then I can look at it and go, why did that model get deployed there? And they go, oh, my idea was to do this. And I go, great. Well, if that model had been deployed here, this happens. And then the person goes, oh, wow, that actually makes a lot more sense because they moved here, or I had like a better angle there, or whatever. And even something as simple as that can change like your outlook on a game, right? So and if you have that within your sparring partners, that's very, very useful. But if you're just playing against people who like, they just want to kick your butt and then they don't explain anything, that's not a sparring partner. That's just somebody who wants to win a game of Warhammer, which is fine. But you need, like, finding people who are going to teach you is, like, within your game group is probably one of the hardest things to do. But it is possible. And if you can't find them in your game group, you have to look outside game group. TTS, get on leagues. And if you're only playing like 2 games a week, maybe you need to play like 10 games a week, right? Like triple or quadruple the amount of games you play so that the games that you do play aren't something you're so invested in winning, right? If you play 1 game a week and that it's like 4 games a month and those are the only games you get, you kind of want that game to be worthwhile. But if you play 10 games a week, right, you get home every night, you get onto TTS, you find a match, and you play 3 hours. If you win or lose, but you're doing that every single night, like the investment of time becomes less invested, and then you kind of let yourself lose more because you're playing so many more games that each loss is like means less, which means you get into situations that you learn more frequently. I hope that makes sense, Phil. Bonzi says, make a journal entry and how you lost. I'm trying this method and helped a bit. Yeah, like writing down, processing the information, writing it down, like making a little battle report. Like, that used to help me a lot. Being like, taking pictures, going through stuff. Yeah. Yeah, but I hope that helps. And yeah, absolutely. Thanks for your question, Phil. That was a good one. Our next question is from Pomp. Says, when will we see some real space raids from you, Skari? If I could choose, I would love to see you with 18 Reavers. I don't own 18 Reavers. I own 12 Reavers. Except 6 of them are not painted. So I could maybe do 18 if I borrow Steve's before he sells his Drukhari. And I paint my other 6 Reaver jet bikes so I could run 18 Reavers. Every time I build a list, I'm like, should I make a real space raid or Sky Splinter? I'm like, Sky Splinter. I just love Sky Splinter. I just love it. The strats are just so much better. But just for you, Pomp, I will do a battle report with real space raids. Just for you at some point soon. Saludos desde el equipo mexicano. Hola. Saludos desde Canadá. Paisano aquí. Yeah. Oh yeah, it says, would you consider an even more gun-heavy Drukhari list with SSA Sky Splinter in this meta? So 2 Void Ravens, 3 Scourge, 1 Court, 2 Cabs. Do you already play with as many Cabs and Scourge in your current list? You could do a more gun-heavy Drukhari list. The biggest thing about guns is that's kind of what Real Space Raid was. All it did was guns back in the early parts of the edition, and we quickly found out that if people could hide from your guns, like there's nothing you could do. So you need to have some sort of combat element, and those points then get pulled from the gun elements. You need to be able to go behind a building and punch things that are hiding in this building without having to shoot them. And so having that like flexibility in list building is super important. Now, more guns, I don't know how I could fit more guns into the list right now, other than maybe do double Void Raven Bomber, double Tantalus, and it's like a ton of points, Hey, thank you so much, Bonzi, for the super chat. Love the channel. I wish I played Dark Eldar now. You should play Dark Eldar. Do you also coach for other armies as well? Art of War Gold sub. You're a coach there or on your own platform? Cheers. Well, thanks a lot, Bonzi, for that. I definitely am so I coach for any faction. I know all of the factions and I can coach for any faction. I do coaching both on my Patreon with 2 tiers. I've got like the Trueborn tier, and I've got the Incubi tier, and the information for that is on the Patreon page. I'm also one of the coaches on the Art of War team, so yes, you can 100% pick from whichever tier coaching they offer, and I am one of the options to coach through the Art of War program as well. So that is, of course, up to personal preference, yeah, but I am on that as well, and I have coached people playing Custodes, Imperial Knights, orcs, Dark Eldar, of course. So Necrons, any sort of faction you want, I will teach you how to play Warhammer competitively. Yeah, and I definitely, I guess, have a tone to be more of a personal trainer. So it's not like a regimen of like, this is what I'm going to teach you. It's more like, okay, you want to learn how to get like, a 6-pack of abs. I know what tools to use to get to that point. So let's work together to make that happen, sort of thing. But I hope that answers your question as well. Okay. But yeah, just to say, I don't think you could fit more stuff in there without it's just not how it is. And then last but not least, the last question is Meadows. It says, where do you stand? Where do you stand? I pressed the wrong button. Where do you stand on the 3 versus 2 Mandrake question? Obviously, it varies list to list, but what is your default for most balanced lists? So it used to be 3 Mandrakes for my lists, and then it became 2. Now, it became 2 mainly because when you buy the Kill Team set, it's 10 Mandrakes, which gives you 2 units of 5. That is the reason it became 2. But ever since I started using 2, I haven't needed more than 2. So it stayed at 2, if that makes sense. And that is the answer to that question. I think 2 is the solution, because I feel like those points have now been spent elsewhere and have been very useful spent elsewhere, and I haven't found the need for more than 2 units of Mandrakes. But it's because it's easy to buy. Like, I wanted to make sure that somebody could buy like a box with the 10 Mandrakes and have the 2 units. And so my list becomes more easily replicatable for other people to play it, which is a consideration I make when I make lists. I'm like, how easy is this to build? Other than like the Beast Pack, which is out of production, the Court, which is out of production, Grotesques, which are like terrible fine cast models, and you have to like convert pretty much anyway. Uri and Rakarth, which you can't find anywhere, so you have to convert him too. So other than that, or Void Raven bombers, or a Tantalus, I try and make my list as easily replicatable as possible. And that brings us to the conclusion of the first part of the show, which is the questions, the Q&A. Now, this is the second part. It's called the List Crunch. Anybody who's brand new to the List Crunch, if you are a Scourge, Trueborn, or Incubi tier Patreon, you can submit one army list every single week. I will read it, and I'll basically go through each list in about 2 minutes, and I just give you my general thought process of the list. That's it. It's designed to give you some food for thought as you're developing a list. I might pick out maybe 1 or 2 things that I'm like, oh, this is interesting or that's interesting. So defend your choice or give you a thought for like something I might do. And then I do this every single week on the weekly show as well. Now we're going to fire through these as I have 40 minutes left on the show here before I have to get on my next coaching call, for Fridays being one of my busy days. But if you have any other questions, of course, make sure you post them in and we'll go through that. First question, first list is from Swollen. It says, Wind Riders are my Fire and Fade target. Fair. I want to force my opponent to commit resources to break my non-interactive unit, aka the Wind Riders, when he begins to push. The plan is to jump with the Spider and Incarn where he is weak. So the list name is Control and Mobility. So we have 1 Wayleaper Autark, who is the Warlord, who has a Fusion Blund. We've got the Mandy Blasters. I find a lot of folks have now been going back to the Banshee Mask for the fights first, and of course the Phoenix Gem to come back to life. Good choice. He's really solid. The Death Jester with the Fate's Messenger, also a really solid unit. The Farseer Skyrunner, the Incarn, and then a Warlock Skyrunner. So I like the Farseer. I don't really think you need the Warlock personally, but that's just me. I think you could save points on the Skyrunner there with 55 points. You do have a Storm Guardian unit for sticky objectives. That's good. You have a unit of Rangers, 2 units of Shadow Specters, a unit of Shroud Runners. That's really good with the lethals, which is not bad considering you get Guide with the Jet Bike. Farseer as well, which is pretty good. And we have 2 units of Swooping Hawks, 2 units of spy, 3 units of spiders, and then a big break of wind riders, which tends to be the biggest thing. So the one thing I'd say is I'd like to see something like a viper in here that can like drop cover from targets, so that you could like really maximize on the the shuriken cannons. Another thing is I'm not a big fan of Shadow Specters. I think those points can be spent elsewhere, to be honest. I think switching those Shadow Specters for like a couple of War Walkers would probably be better. And that's like my general thought process. I think if you drop the Shadow Specters, that's 230 points plus like, the one Warlock, right? Skyrunner that gives you 200 and so he's got 280 points or something like that, 285 points. Like you could actually do quite a lot of work with 285 points, where I'd try and put in more little units. A War Walker, a couple of Vipers. I don't know. I feel like you could use those points elsewhere. You know what I mean? Maybe a unit of Striking Scorpions to get you some like more punch. And then the Incarn is good and bounces around. I do feel like the Avatar Kane just gives the army a better counter punch, so you don't have to bounce around as much, but it stops your opponent from rushing you, because there's a lot of like rush armies right now, Thunderwolf Cavalry, World Eaters that can like really get to you, and if you don't have something that can push back, it can be a little tough to kind of get out of that bind and score points. But I do like the Storm Guardians for sticky. That I do like, so that can stay. Yeah. But I hope that gives you a little bit of food for thought for your list. Moving on to Hobo Bob. Hobo Bob, with his Squatty Potty list. My son's just gone into 7th grade now, so he's definitely grown out of the Squatty Potty phase. That's funny. An Ironrear champion with the Glare, and then a Khal with the Grim Demeanor. Cool. So pretty standard. I know a lot of folks have been going for double champion nowadays because they're like the cheapest of the characters, and they're quite good for what you get, and they do like the damage on they charge and a whole bunch of variety of stuff. 1 unit Hearthkin Warriors, excellent choice. I love sticky objectives. They're just like cheap troops. Split the unit in a Sagittor, and then you've got like 2 50-point units that go around doing stuff. Very, very good for that. You've got triple Sagittor, a big unit of Berserks, big unit of Hearthguard, second big unit of Hearthguard, so giant, 2 big 20 Terminator bricks. Haven't seen the 20 Terminator bricks in a while. A lot of folks have moved towards the 5s just because they tend to, or 1 10 and 1 5, to save points. However, if in your meta it still like works, that kind of works out, then that's fine. Then we have another unit of 5 Hearthguards, so you're going really big into the Terminators here. And then 1 Fortress, which I think is good. The Magna Rail Cannon, I feel a lot of folks have been going for more of the Conversion Cannon, mainly because unless you run that like character guy that makes the Magna Rail Cannon really good, it tends to be better to get like the multiple 4 damage shots, right, at like a certain range. Like it just increases the damage output of your land fortress. And then, of course, Pioneers. 2 units of Pioneers and 1 Jaeger unit. So Jaeger unit, excellent. Pioneers, excellent. Fortress, 1 Fortress, good. 25 Terminators, okay, that's where you're going to find points. You know what I mean? If anything, I'd probably go for 1 10 and 2 5s. Personally, I think you'll need the 1 big hammer. You've got 1 Sagittor for Berserks, and then the other Sagittor, I would honestly drop a Sagittor, to be perfectly fair. I don't think you need the 3. I think you can get away with 2. Why? Because I want 1 unit of these warriors to be on foot and on your home objective. So either do that, or if you fiddle with the Terminators, put in a 2nd unit of Berserks, so you have another unit of Berserks in the 3rd Sagittor. So keep the Sagittor, drop like 5 Terminators, put another unit of Berserks in, so you can have 2 Sagittors with Berserks, 1 Sagittor that splits the Hearthkin, so 5 Hearthkin can stay on your home objective and sticky it right away, and then move out to do stuff or screen the backboard as a thought process. And then you would still have like 60 points from the Hearthguard, if you dropped 5 of them. So then you could probably drop a couple of the enhancements that you have. And if you can get 30 points of enhancements, you can actually take a third unit of Pioneers, right? So that's kind of where my head goes, is like trying to put in more bikes or make 1 unit of Pioneers a 6-strong unit. So you have like 1 unit of 3 for like screening and harassing, and one big 6-strong unit to like go in and do damage. But that's just some food for thought, that you can take it or leave it, but hopefully it gives you some ideas. Richard Wallace said, can't believe you only have 30,000 subs. Should be 40K. I know. Gonna get there eventually. My goal is to get to 100,000. I want to get my little 100,000 plaque. I'm a very niche channel that puts up 1 or 2 videos a week. So if you want to see me get there, sub to the channel, share the videos, all that good stuff. It really helps out. And I hope to keep on doing stuff that people enjoy. So that is my biggest goal, really. Moving on, a little bit of a switch. We've got an AOS list by First Among the Chosen. Thanks for posting a list. It's a Slave to Darkness list with the Morbid Conjuration Manifestation lore. So we've got Be'lakor, we've got Varangard, a reinforced unit of Varangard with a mark of Khorne. We have a Chaos Lord on a Demonic Mount. We've got the Mind Stealer, another unit of Varangard with Nurgle, another unit of Varangard with Myrnal, and then, of course, the Nexus. So I will say Varangard are very powerful, and that is it goes without saying. Like, those cavalry units hit super, super hard. Biggest thing I think is I like having more screening units when I play AOS. So like having a unit of just cheap anything to just put in front of stuff and screen. So like you could use marauders or things like that as well, just to have a line of infantry that could be like, if you double turn me or if you do stuff, like you can come and kill these guys, and then the Varangard can like countercharge. I think is very, very powerful as well. So just something to keep in mind. Like Be'lakor has always been a boss, and he's only 400 points. So he's relatively cheap for what you get. And there's a reason cavalry is very, very good in this game. Of course, when you're doing your the God's Wrath Warband, all those bonuses work really, really well, and you're keeping the list to 2 drops, which in Age of Sigmar is pretty good. I think 2 drops is like standard. I find a hard time making a list that's less than 3, but with 2 drops, it means you're more than likely going to have a lot of say in who goes first. And then because you're one of these tough armies, I think it benefits you to play this in Age of Sigmar right now, because like soft armies just have a hard time against a double turn and have a hard time not scoring to take a double turn. So like you can put this stuff down, go first, and if they double turn you, you probably win, right? Because they don't have enough like power to do enough damage to not score for a turn. Just something to keep in mind. But thanks a lot for posting that list. I like that you took Nurgle and Khorne and kind of mixed it up a little bit as well. Moving on to the next one, Dorian posted lists. It's a Tyranid list. So we've got a Neuro Tyrant. Is this Oh, you didn't tell me what detachment you're using. So I'm going to say it is I want to say it's Invasion Fleet. If you have so many monsters for the Feel No Pains, I guess. Neuro Tyrant. 10 Gargoyles, 10 Gargoyles, good. Bivor, good. 2 Neuros, good. 2 units of Raveners, yeah, good to go kill infantry. 6 Zoes to go with the Neuro Tyrant, pretty solid choice. Double Exocrine, they're fantastic. Double Haruspex, they're actually really good too. Double Maleceptor, they're also really good. And a Norn Emissary, so just Monster Mesh. It's pretty straightforward Monster Mesh. Like, it is not terrible. I think that if you're going to go for something like this, I think things like the Raveners could turn into something else, personally. I do like the Neurotyrant. Like, I would honestly take the Raveners out and put in, like, Hormagaunts or Termagaunts and just have like more chaff units that can like go around and like screen more of the board and take up more space on the table, so that your Exocrine, Tower Specs, Maleceptors, and the Norn Emissary can go and like do most of the damage. It is also interesting not to see like Old One Eye with Carnifexes in this style of list, because he is very hyper aggressive and is like a distraction Carnifex that prevents your opponent from dealing with them because of the surge move. So it kind of gives you, but it is like a relatively expensive point investment. So if you did that, you'd kind of lose the Norn Emissary, I believe would be like the way to fit it in. But seems like a ton of fun to play. Lots of big bugs, some shooting, some combat. You've got like the pressure of the Zoes, and then you got some scoring with the Gargoyles, and that's where I feel like putting the Raveners into more scoring stuff, like the little Termagants, would probably be the best. Another thing is you don't have any infiltrators, so like, or scouts or anything that can really, well, other than Neurolictors, but like, do you really want to sacrifice a whole Neurolictor to stop like World Eaters from rushing you? Right, so that's something to keep in mind as well. Is there a way to put in something else that might be a little cheaper to like create a screen? Because you want to keep your Gargoyles alive. But having like even Neurogaunts, like a big unit, actually having a big unit of 20 Neurogaunts, 22 Neurogaunts, is a great choice to have in any Tyranid list, because you can screen like a whole line across your deployment zone, so that if they rush you, they kill Neurogaunts, and that doesn't matter. But B, because you can hide them in the backboard, and if your opponent draws Cull the Horde, they can't just get rid of it. They have to. You have a unit of Neurogaunts that counts for Cull, and it might be hidden in the back behind all your monsters, and they can't just like redraw, which really helps with some of the secondary play, which is a sneaky way of saying this unit of 22 models is like 90 points or whatever it is. Super cheap, you know. But something to keep in mind. But thank you for posting your list, Dorian. On to the next one, Phil. An aggressive list inspired partially by catching up on Brent's Craftworld Eldar content. Nice. Fugan brings the heat literally. Avatar with Fortune to hold a flank. Lots of devs and mortal wound output. Characters and Falcon wound rerolls. Hopefully enough small units to play the game. Finally get my hand on some Swooping Hawks. Amazing. Swooping Hawks are incredible. They are one of the best units in the book. And the name of this list is Triple Falcon Avatar. I have played into the Triple Falcon. The fire support element of the Falcon, very useful. The fact that they can deep strike, very useful. The fact that you can deep strike, disembark, very useful, and then shoot and then get rerolls to wound, very useful. Like, it's not a bad thing to have, especially with things like Fire Dragons. But it also depends on what your current meta is. Like, and Falcons have a decent amount of shooting. You got like that Bright Lance, and then you've got the Pulse Laser, and then you got the Cannon. So they actually shoot decently. They're not like the toughest tank, but they're not a bad tank. So a Wayleaper, who's your Warlord, with the Mandy Blasters, the Starglaive, and the Fusion Gun. Once again, I do like the Banshee Mask better, because that fights first is actually really handy in a pinch. Avatar Kane. I love the Avatar of Kane. I think he should go down in points, but I love the Avatar of Kane. Death Jester with Fate's Messenger, amazing. That's like a trio of characters I absolutely love. One Farseer on foot, Fugan, also amazing, and then Karandras. Now, Karandras, I understand. I feel like taking him out would give you more options, and putting his points into the Phoenix Gem on the Wayleaper would be chef's kiss, because then you have Fugan that bounces up back to life, the Wayleaper that bounces up back to life, right? And you have two characters that count as 4 characters almost, which help you a lot in scoring, right? They really help a lot in the scoring aspect of the game. Guardian Defenders with the Farseer, I love that combination. Extra fate dice every time, all that good stuff. Really, really good. That's an excellent choice. The Dire Avenger unit, sure, like I don't think Dire Avenger, like the Overwatch better, I think, is their thing. Like, they're cool. I don't think that they're like needed, you know, in order to like really play the game, but they're okay. Falcon. Yep, not terrible. Expensive, but good. You do have them with the choice of weapons that I would. Fire Dragon unit, excellent. A Ranger unit, 2 Rangers. Yeah, I think you can get away with 1 unit. 1 unit of Striking Scorpions. I'm assuming to go with Karandras. Yeah, that also works too. Swooping Hawks, yes. 1 Viper. I would try give the Viper a Bright Lance. I think the Bright Lance works best on the Viper. And then a unit of Warp Spiders. So, man, Warp Spiders are 125 points, eh? They really went up. So that's where I'd go. Okay, great. So dropping Karandras and then putting in the Phoenix Gem gives you points to like do other stuff. I think that would give you enough points to maybe put in like a secondary Viper or something like that. I don't think you need 2 units of Rangers. I think you can get away with just 1, to be honest. And then if you take those points plus the points that you save from Karandras, if you change that, it might give you a chance to. Oh, and then like the dire event. So what I would try and do is make sure these falcons are like 2 of the falcons are filled with fire dragons. Is what I would try and do. So falcon fire dragons, and then the 3rd falcon can have, I don't know, like the striking scorpions in there. You know what I mean? Like, but then that doesn't really give the striking scorpions anything because I think the fire support only works with shooting, right? So that's just something to keep in mind as well. But having lots of little units is important. Grinders are supposed to come out of the Falcon. You also get the wound rerolls for melee for him. DA's another Falcon with Death Jester, good positioning. Okay, fair enough. So the Death Jester, I think, works best not being in a transport at all, because if you ever Overwatch with him, you can he can like turn a hit roll into a 6 and like they just automatically get a hit or whatever. Same with the Avatar, you've got some good, and same with Fugan. Like Fugan should be on the table most of the time, but you do put him into one of the Falcons. Actually, Fugan and a Falcon by himself wouldn't be a bad choice. So you could do Falcon with Fire Dragons, Falcon with Fire Dragons, Falcon with Fugan. Then you've got 1 unit of Rangers and 1 unit of Striking Scorpions that could infiltrate potentially or reserve. And Karandras is okay, but I don't like I think he's not worth his points. Like, to be perfectly blunt. I do love the Falcon concept, though. Falcon concept is fun. You got decent amount of shooting. The Avatar gives you that counter punch, right? So if somebody gets too aggressive, you can like counter punch with Avatar, and you've got enough stuff around the board that you can like score points. The biggest thing I would see is you need to make sure you have enough units alive to do a lot of actions in Pariah. So like having a 2nd Viper unit or a War Walker or another unit of Warp Spiders, I think, or another unit of Swooping Hawks. Like you need, I think, 1 more unit that can do stuff. That can bounce around the board or survive a turn hidden so that then you can score like a containment or a sabotage or things like that as well. So just something that I like. That's where my thought process goes with that sort of thing as well. I play into Tyranids and Demons often. The 2 damage dev wounds in melee is very helpful versus a 4++. Okay, fair enough. So if it's a meta choice, then that works great. You know, especially if it's a meta choice, right? Hence the Death Jester and Karandras, multiple sources, 2 damage dev wounds. Okay, fair enough. You know, that works. And especially if you're having a hard time getting through invulnerable saves, and this is like your way of combating that. Excellent. So it seems like you're putting it in based on your local meta, which is fine too. Hodgie, what's going on? Good afternoon to you. Could cut the 2nd Rangers for Phoenix Gem though. Thanks for the input. Yeah, I don't think you need the 2 Rangers. I think that's like if there's one place you maybe get points is there. And then you've got 40 points left or whatever, so you can kind of fiddle around with some of the things. But I think you're like on the right track to finding something that vibes. Yeah. Maybe Warp Spiders. Say, keep the Warp Spiders. Do not get rid of the Warp Spiders. Warp Spiders are like key. They are key just to play the game. Like, if anything, I would start a list with 3 units of Warp Spiders. You have at least 1, which is good. Do not get rid of them. That and Swooping Hawks. They stay. They absolutely stay. Do not get rid of the spiders. Spiders, that's right. Spiders everywhere, Phil. Just everywhere. But I hope that gives you some food for thought and helps you out there. Moving on to the next list, we've got Alaric's list. Double Monolith roster for Warhammer 40k. Hypercrypt. Cool. Plasmancer with Arisen Tyrant, Chronomancer with a Fulcrum, Nightbringer, Illuminor. Pretty standard build for Hypercrypt. Then we have Immortals, Immortals, Immortals. These are 5-man each with Tesla. Then we have a unit of Warriors, which is 20 with Reapers. Okay, then we got 2 units of Death Marks, 2 Locust singles, and 2 Monoliths. Okay, so pretty straightforward and standard stuff. One thing I say is you need to have a unit of... you need a unit of Flayed Ones in there. Just one unit of Flayed Ones. Something that infiltrates. Just in case... Like, if this is designed to go to a tournament or to play into the meta, if you don't have something that can stop scout moves, or like something that... or to stop an aggressive infiltration, it's going to be a little tougher to deal with certain matchups, even if you don't see them very often, like World Eaters or Genestealer Cult with 30 Pure Strain Genestealers. Like, sometimes you just need to create some space, and having a unit of Flayed Ones or 2 really helps with creating space at the beginning of the game. So, you don't really need the 3rd unit of Immortals, because you've got 1 Plasmancer that can go with Immortals. You've got 1 Chronomancer that can go with, what? Immortals, sure. Then you have Illuminor, that is like a Satan, and then the Nightbringer that is a Satan, right? So you've got 2 tough units there. You've got your Plasmancer with a Risen Tyrant, which makes it really cool. So if anything, I would definitely combine one of the units of Immortals into 1 unit of 10 to put the Plasmancer in there to maximize on a Risen Tyrant. That's like one of the first things I would do. Then you can switch the Plasmancer between the Tesla Immortals or the Warriors depending on your matchup. Like, if you need a whole bunch of lethal hits to proc on 5s because you're playing against monsters, you can put it in with the Gauss Reapers. If you need all the Tesla to explode on 5s, then you put the Plasmancer with the big unit of Immortals. As for the Chronomancer, he would go into the secondary unit, right? He would go into either the Warriors or the Immortals based on where you put the Plasmancer. So you've got some options there, which does mean that the 5 unit of Immortals, that 5-man, the 3rd unit is kind of like in limbo. So that would turn into your Flayed Ones, basically, is what I would say. And then if you had any points left, you could change one of these Locust Destroy units to a unit of Scarabs, which I think is a very good change. Especially if you've got a Luminor Caesaris in there, they can buddy-bud up and make him lone up, etc., etc. As for that, Monolith, double Monolith, and Satan of the Nightbringer doesn't give you many points for anything else. So it's about leveraging the monoliths. And at that point, it becomes, how do you play this list? But in terms of tweaking the list, there's not much you can really tweak other than like those little things that I kind of added. Death Marks are okay. They bounce up and down. They deep strike, sure. Locusts are good for scoring points. Absolutely. You know, if anything, I don't think you need the Satan. I think you can drop the Nightbringer, but that's a personal preference thing. Yeah. And I hope that gives you some food for thought. And if you want to go for the big brick of Warriors, a lot of the times I would actually drop this Nightbringer and maybe even the Chronomancer, and I would go for Orkan the Diviner. Give him a 4-up invul, right? He goes Super Saiyan once per game and like can actually murder stuff, and then spend some extra points on a couple of not plasma sites, the little buckets of death that give your unit like 6 extra wounds just to keep them alive, and then you can bounce them up and down, teleport them places, things like that, right? So, but hopefully that gives you some food for thought, Alaric. Moving on to a question in chat. Hodgy Mob says, question. Against a Necron list like this, would you advise taking Space Marines just to get 3 units of Infiltrators to have 12-inch no deep strike? I have Necron play with a list like this next. Well, even if I played Space Marines or anything that had... Like, first of all, you don't need Space Marines for 12-inch deep strike denial bubble. You can just take a Navigator as an ally, which is one of the Inquisitorial agents. It's a single model that has a 12-inch denial bubble. That in any Imperial list is just money. It's 75 points for a 12-inch denial bubble. Secondly, you don't need 3 units of denial. You can get away with like 1 denial unit of 12 inches. And then you can kind of use the rest of your army to screen out. Like the 1 denial unit just stops the 3-inch deep strike stuff. Don't overcompensate is what I'm trying to say, because that's 300 points of your list, and it only really helps in that one matchup. You know what I mean? So it's good to have it as a tool, but I wouldn't like super invest in it or hyper skew into it. Gon Q says, I did not realize the Drukhari God does an open forum podcast. Well, Gon Q, this is a Patreon, usually a Patreon-only weekly show. Every once in a while, I open it up for the entire internet, so you can see what you're missing out on. As a huge shout-out to the patrons, I do this every single week. I break down lists, I answer questions. But yes, it's like a podcast, but better. And I will definitely let that Drukhari God comment inflate my ego to the 10th degree. So thank you very much. That made me feel very, very special on a Friday. Thank you. Moving on to the next list. It's the league game where we can swap lists between games, so I would only be taking them for that game. Sure, then don't take 3, just take 2 units maybe of 12. But if you want to get good at the game, Hodgie, though, I would definitely recommend you don't list tailor too much, because any list can be incredibly good at countering another list, but that doesn't teach you anything, right? So yes, a Navy SEAL won't take his flippers to the desert, or whatever. However, they might have their flippers on them, just in case. Pirad says, so it just depends on what your goal is. Is your goal just to win the game? Sure, anybody can win a game. But is your goal to get better at the game? Then use a list that you would use at a tournament and get better with that list, regardless of who you're playing against. And play it over and over and over again and learn what's good and what's bad. What are good matchups? What are bad matchups? What are good missions? What are bad missions? What's good deployment? What's bad deployment? Right? How to approach going first, how to approach going second, and then play it into every single faction in every single mission, going first, going second, as best you can, and then get the information. And then you have that one list and go, this list is good at this, this, and this, and then it makes you better at the game, right? Pyrad says, happy List Cruncho Day, Scary and fellow denizens. Happy List Cruncho Day. Of course, we call it List Crunch because it's like a bowl of delicious cereal, of List Crunchos. And we eat them on a Friday morning, watching cartoons before the weekend. It's just how it works. And it's delicious. No notice on Discord, says Cosmic. Oh no, usually when I go live, it automatically posts that I went live or posted it on Discord, Cosmic. I was hoping that it would. My apologies to that. I'll make sure I make a post on it as well. EOTL says, shooting and combat for fire support lasts till end of turn for Eldar. Nice. Well, that's good to know. That's fancy, so you can definitely use it for both. It's pretty cool. Maybe we can do a thing. I don't know, Cosmic. Is there a way to do it so that if one of my posts goes up on Patreon, it does it on the Discord? We'll talk about it, but maybe that we can get the bot to grab the patron posts as well. Is that possible? Do you need an RSS feed or whatever? I think I can get that off you, but we'll talk about it later. Been practicing and tinkering with the Soul Forge Warpack list. Just ordered a second Forge Fiend from eBay. Hope it arrives before my next tournament in Hamilton, September 22nd. Yes, 27th, not 22nd. Hopefully. Changes since last list. Added the Warpsmith with extra movement. Good. All the reviewers say that enhancement sucks. Sure. I tried it and now I strongly disagree. Movement wins games. And it's one of the reasons why I say you should test things. Don't just listen to internet pundits. Because internet pundits have strong opinions about things. Like the fact that Dark Eldar is in C tier. Infantry moving 10 inches means you can keep up with the Venom Crawlers to do actions, or still shoot, or also great for my command insertion secret mission to yeet the Warlord onto the enemy deployment zone. That's 20 points for, to get an easy 20 points at the end of the game in case. Not bad. 10-inch movement on an infantry model to do actions and press a button in a certain spot. Also pretty good. Not sure what to do with the second Forge Fiend. Put it in the bin. Nah, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding, don't do that. It is magnetized, so for now it has Gatling and Jaws. I would just go triple ectoplasm. Like, just do 2 triple ectoplasm for both of them. I can even make it a Mauler Fiend and free up 60 points. Depends on if you need the combat support, but that list does leverage the shooting, so I would just kind of go all in on it. I'm considering using those 60 points for budding character. Is Mauler Fiend better with cutters or tentacles? If you were doing the Mauler Fiend, I think the cutters are better because of the Melta. I think that just helps. So, but as for like 60 points for character, I'm like, I don't think you need it. I think the extra, like moving around the board and getting angles or bringing him in from reserve and just like blowing stuff up with the ectoplasm would probably be better. It just in general. Andrew says, hello, Scary. My mad cows also say hello. Rematch soon? Heck yeah, let's rematch soon, Andrew. Let's do it. Let's rock and roll, mad cows. Moo. I assume you're going to WCW this year? Heck yes. I have my golden ticket. I'm totally going. I'd love to play you at that event, though, through pairings, of course. That would be great. Gone Cube. Definitely love to see you there as well. So let's take a look at this list, Pyrad. Sorcerer and Terminator Armor. Yep. Warpsmith. Yep. Cultist Mob. Yep. Defiler. Forge Fiend. Hellbrute. I don't think you need 2 Hellbrutes. I think you get away with 1. I think you can get away with 1. Helldrake. Love the sneaky Helldrake. Okay. By the way, if you drop a Hellbrute and do the whole Mauler Fiend thing, that gives you 190 points. And then you could put in like a 3rd Forge Fiend. So you do Forge Fiend. No, Forge Fiend, Mauler Fiend. Yeah. So if you take a Hellbrute out, you could put in a Mauler Fiend. I think that's a good choice. Just get a 3rd Forge Fiend and then turn it into a Mauler Fiend. See, there's a solution. I think that would actually be better than the 2nd Hellbrute, to be honest. A Helldrake. I love the Helldrake. That crazy Helldrake move 20 inches through buildings thing is the most hilarious thing you will do. That yeeting Helldrake to go and like rip up a Riptide or something at the backfield, hilariously fun. Or like a Tantalus, so you're playing as Dark Eldar, be like, oh, is that a Tantalus? Yeet, rip, ah. Or is that the Incarn or whatever it is? Oh man, so fun. And then triple Venom Crawler. Good. Allied units. And you have space for allied stuff. Blue Horrors, excellent. Double Nurglings, good. And then Blue Scribes. I think you can get away with just 1 unit of Nurglings. I don't think you need 2. The fact that they're OC0 brings their, like, stonks down. You know? But the Blue Scribes are excellent. Horrors and Blue Scribes, excellent. Don't change that. If anything, I'd say you've got wiggle room with the Nurglings. You also have wiggle room with one of the Helldrakes. Everything else seems like a ace choice for the list itself. Hopefully that gives you some food for thought, and you might be able to take that to the bank as well. Moving on, Altharius, Cosmic himself. Oh man, we play, so every Thursday night, or most Thursday nights, or every Thursday night, we play this game called Gladius. It's a Warhammer 40,000 skin of Civilization. So if you love Civilization-style games, then Gladius is a game for you, and it is a 40k skin of Civilization, and it is a blast. It's been around for such a long time, and there's DLCs for like a whole bunch of factions, and we play with the Patreons every Thursday night. And yesterday we had like 7 people playing, and it's a big free-for-all, and it's just a ton of fun on Thursday evenings, and Cosmic was there. That's why I said that. And he plays as Necrons, except he was playing Adeptus Mechanicus, actually, which was very interesting. I got to play Sisters of Battle, which was very interesting as well, but I normally play Drukhari. Anyway, moving on. You've got your Necron Hypercrypt Legion. You said, moving back to Old Faithful with new friends. Definitely. It's always nice to go back to, like, your roots, you know? Like, when you're like, something just vibes inherently with you, and you're like, I just want to play X or Y. So the Warlord is a Silent King, and you have an Arisen Tyrant, and you've got a bunch of different units. So, you got a Plasmancer with Arisen, another Plasmancer, good, a Scorpec Lord, yep, Illuminor, he's awesome. Stormlord, extra CP, can't go wrong. The Silent King, who is the Warlord, makes sense. Decent amount of characters. I think you, instead of the Nightbringer, you basically sub out the Nightbringer for Silent King. I think that's a pretty good switch out. He's a little bit more expensive. But Silent King right now, I think, is money when it comes to Necrons. He's very good. He's very versatile. He's a huge he is a great force multiplier for the Necrons. I think it works really well. So 2 units of 10 Immortals, one with Gauss, one with Tesla. Double Plasmancer goes into those. You, of course, got the Arisen Tyrant that can go with either the Gauss or the Tesla, depending on your matchup. So there's versatility there. I like that versatility as well. Rerolls are such money, especially like the rerolls, well, hit and wound rerolls, right? Which is great with like a whole bunch of the other stuff too. On himself or on, the monoliths themselves or whatever it is. 2 units of death mark, 3 units of death marks, so they're more your scoring. Yeah, they're a little bit more expensive than the single destroyers, but I think they work much better. Big brick of 10 flayed ones. I would personally do 2 units of 5, but I know how dangerous the big unit of 10 can be, especially out of a monolith. Like, it actually gives you like a crazy amount of... I've done it before. I've done the 10 flayed ones with the hypercrypt, pull them through a monolith and then charge right away. It can really catch someone off guard. You got a little unit of 3 Scorpec destroyers as well, and a monolith, which of course, works very, very well with the Silent King. I like that you have enough little units that it allows you to score points, but you have enough bricks to deal damage, which is good as well. And the death marks are like annoying enough that they're like, you've got enough stuff that no one's really going to want to shoot the death marks, and then they can do your containments, something like sabotage. You get like Illuminor to do, you know what I mean? Or the Scorpec Lord with the Scorpec Destroyers, because they can hide behind walls and press buttons. But Illuminor does a lot of the I need to survive a whole turn actions because he's really tanky. And then you've got the Death Marks to bounce up and down the board and do most of your little maneuvering ones. And then you've got your hammer units. Immortals, flayed ones, Monolith, King, that can do most of the damage. And I love that sort of like combo. And then the Scorpec Lord can be like, with a Scorpex, can be more of a counter punch unit if somebody gets too aggressive, which I like, so you don't have to commit them. And then you got the flayed ones, which are okay, great into hordes, so you can kill like a horde of stuff, but also really good into damage stuff. Like you bring something to below 50, and then all of a sudden, like every hit is a sustained hit for the flayed ones with twin linked, and they can just like really do damage, and then they get reroll hit rolls of 1 with the king nearby, for example. So, options. I like options. So all in all, I think the list is well developed, and you've been developing this list for like over a year. So I like this iteration of your list, Cosmic. It looks really good. Rerolls are money, yes. Moving on, Brimstone posts the list. And we kind of fly through these here. So we've got this list. This is a list I ran a few times. I really like the Death Strike. It allows me to influence my opponent's movement phase and has helped me out a lot. The Scions are really good for doing secondaries, while the 10-men with the command squad punch way above their point value. Oh, believe me, Scions are like money in a guard army. Anyway, what would you recommend changing and adding to this? Quickly on to Cosmic's questions. As I find having Scorpex and holding them off board makes my opponent screen more. The threat of rapid with an 8-inch move infantry is rough. That is true, especially with the fact that they do move faster than normal Necrons is interesting. So I do recommend that. Okay, Imperial Guard. Cadian Castellan with Kurov Zakilla. Just orders. Tempestus Command Squad with a Drill Commander. Tank Commander. Yep. Last Cannon, Heavy Bolters. I would definitely switch the Heavy Bolters for Multi-Meltars, personally, for the Tank Commander. That's just a nitpicky thing. Cadian Shock Troops. Yeah, not bad. Good for sticky objectives. An Infantry Squad. 3 units of Infantry. Just a bunch of plasma gun. Did you get... Remember, they all get a free heavy weapon. So make sure that you're giving them all like glass cannons or something. And then on the sergeants, give them chainswords. Like, if you're going for infantry squads, might as well take advantage of all the things that they have to offer. Big unit of Scions, small unit of Scions. Then we have a Bulgrin squad. 6 Bullgrin, yeah, they're good. You can actually split them into 2 units of 3. I think they're just as good as 2 units of 3. 1 Death Strike, haven't actually used one in a while. Demolisher unit, 2 Demolishers, good. 1 Exterminator, good. Ogren Bodyguard, okay, and then 2 Scout Sentinels. So I love that you're running the Lehman Russes. They're most of the damage. The Death Strike is interesting. Haven't used it, but you could definitely switch that out for like a Manticore or an Earthshaker if you absolutely needed it. The lots of infantry squads give you some choices. The biggest thing here is if you're trying to be like if you're trying to be competitive, you are missing out on something like having the horse guy to give you extra command points, which is really useful. But, because having the 2 CP pretty much every time you need it is good for when you need to do the reinforcements. If anything, I would definitely try and I would probably switch a couple of these infantry squads to a Death Corps of Krieg squad, and then try and sub out one of the characters to give them a Death Corps Marshal to give them a 5-up Feel No Pain. I think that would be a fantastic way of adding a little bit of durability to your army that can kind of play in the midboard. And if you can, like that Bullgrin squad, like it's one of the reasons if you're having Bullgrin, I think having the horse guy in your list works really well to be able to give them orders, because other than that, they can't get any orders, and it makes them a little tougher to use. But I will say I love the command squad, Tempesta Scion squad, with the giant unit of Scions. That unit just punches way above its weight class. I would never change that at all. And because you don't have Tannis first and only, I would recommend trying to squeeze in a unit of Ratlings somewhere, just so you have an infiltration unit. I'm saying, like right now in Pariah, having something that can deploy out in the midboard and create space, or move block a scout, or something like that is of high value, especially against guard, where you want to make sure that space remains spacious so that you can use your range to your advantage. You don't want something to get too close too quickly, or you're going to get pinned in your zone, put in jail, and you're going to have a hard time scoring points. But I hope that gives you some food for thought. And then we have, I believe, one last list, and of course we finish it off with some Drukari over here. Danny Cod doesn't have any questions or anything at all. It's just a Sky Splinter Assault list. Archon Warlord with the Sadistic Fulcrum, another Archon, so 3 Archons, a Beast Master, a Homunculus with Uri and Rakarth, so double Homunculus there. Then we have 10 Cabalites, 5 Racks, 2 units of 5 Venom, 2 units of Venoms, 1 Core of the Archon, 1 Chronos, 5 Incubi, 5 Incubi, 5 Mandrakes, 5 Mandrakes, 5 Scourge with Haywire, 5 Scourge with Haywire, 2 Talus with Haywire, 2 Talus with Haywire, and a Tantalus. Okay, so all in all, lots of stuff. First thing I'd say, you have Talus with Haywire, the Scourge can go back to Dark Lances. Having the Scourge have the extra range, I think, is very useful, especially if you've got the Talus with the Haywire. Their twin-linked Haywire makes up for the fact that the Scourge would have Dark Lances. So that's the first sort of like food for thought thing I would give you. 2 units of Incubi are great, and then you also have a Court, which works well. However, you do not have a Raider. You need a Raider to make the Court work best. So drop the Sadistic Fulcrum and change one of those Venoms for a Raider, number 1. And then if you have any points left over, I would say drop the Racks and then put in another Venom. So have like 2 Venoms and a Raider, if at all possible. And I think you can do that by dropping the Sadistic Fulcrum, because I think your list was at 990. Was it? No, it's at 2,000 points. Anyway, so that's one option. Another option is you don't really need the Homunculus. So drop the Homunculus. Urien can stay. He's very good. Drop the Homunculus, drop the Racks. That's 120 points. Add in the Raider, which is fine, because you need the Raider you need the Raider. I'll tell you right now, you need a Raider. And then if you have any other points left over, maybe try and put in another Venom, potentially. Yeah. I don't think you need the 3 Archons, but then again, 3 Archons are pretty fun. But that's kind of like where my head is at. You're spending a lot of points on characters. I don't think you need that many characters. The Drukari list, usually 4 characters is plenty. So you either go 2 Archons, Beastmaster Lilith, or you do Archon, Urien, Beastmaster Lilith, or you do Beastmaster, Beastmaster, Archon, Lilith. Like, there's a couple of combinations, but I would never take more than 5 Drukhari characters. So one of these characters can kind of go away, in my opinion. And that's sort of like where my head's at. You need to be able to have the court with 5 Kabalites with guns, with an Archon and a Raider, especially in Sky Splinter. That's like the combo to run with. In my opinion, it's the best value for your buck with an Archon. And that means you need a Venom to split the Kabalites, but because you have 2 units of Incubi, you would like a Venom for each of those units of Incubi to go with your Archons to have like the Incubi also come and punch, right? So that's important. You do have the Tantalus, which is kind of like what you're going for with like the big brick of Kabalites with the court with the Archon. Is just a 15 strong court doesn't do it for me. You know, it is what it is. At the end of the day, if you do the Raider thing, I think that's more efficient, and then you could actually do something like put the 2 units of Incubi with 1 Archon as a big 10-man in the Tantalus, and they have like a big Incubi unit in the Tantalus with the 1 Archon, and then have them as a secondary punchy unit. That's an option too, you know? But that's just some food for thought, you know? Other than that, you've got the right amount of Mandrake, Scourge, Talus, like everything else looks great. It's more that sort of like support elements that I'm like, where would you use that for? Well, folks, thanks all for tuning in to the season beginning, the season premiere of The Weekly Show. This is a show I do for patrons every Friday. Of course, if you'd like to support the channel, the best way to do that is on Patreon. The link is in the description. If you like this kind of content, make sure you leave a like, let me know what you liked, leave a comment, share this video if you'd like to do that as well. And of course, a huge shout out to all of you, 30,000 subscribers strong. We are Legion. We're almost at that 40K for 40K level, right? Which is like, you know, that's a pretty cool thing to kind of get to. I'm miles away from some of the big channels, but you know what? I like it. I like all of you, and you guys make me feel special. So thank you very much. I appreciate all your support over the years. I am going to be doing some sort of giveaway or some sort of like celebration for 30,000 subscribers. So leave a suggestion down below. Let me know kind of like what you like to see. And other than that, I'll see you on the Discord. Don't forget the Discord is open to the public. We did add a free section for everybody to kind of jump into. The link for that is on the Patreon page on like the promos story thing or whatever. A Dark Eldar showcase for 30,000 subscribers. Yeah, I could totally do something like that. That'd be really fun. Like, oh, this is my army video or whatever. That'd be kind of fun. Other than that, thanks all for hanging out. I've been Skari, your grateful host, signing off until next time. Skari out. And that has been The Weekly Show. The Dark Kin. Bye, everybody.